Hey, Mike, come here.
My manager yelled loudly. I hurried to his desk, wondering what I had done wrong.
You think you're something special, planning to take a day off for your wedding.
I couldn't grasp what he was saying. As I stood there stunned, he ranted on.
Someone like you, a low-level employee, trying to get time off is useless. You're fired.
He was still saying something, but I couldn't hear him anymore. What is this guy even talking about? Suddenly, something snapped in my head. There was no anger. I couldn't feel anything for such a vile person. Just emptiness spreading. All right, I quit. I just said it quietly. My heart was equally calm. Imagining this man's face turning pale in a few months, I felt pity for him even now. My name is Mike. I'm a 29-year-old salesman at a tableware company. As a kid, I never imagined I would end up selling tableware. I think I wanted to be a firefighter until 3rd grade. It was around that time that my life took a major turn. We weren't rich, but we were well off enough to go on family trips a few times a year. However, during the summer of 3rd grade, my dad's travel agency suddenly went bankrupt. Well, it must have taken some time to actually go bankrupt, but as a kid, it seemed sudden to me. Our life changed completely. Up until then, I could get anything I wanted or wanted to learn by asking my dad or mom. Of course, my mom, who didn't buy unnecessary things, didn't always buy me toys. But from the day of the bankruptcy, we couldn't afford anything. I literally was never bought anything. They didn't buy me the toys, games, or clothes I wanted. Even mentioning a trip felt embarrassingly out of reach. The only thing left was a massive debt. My dad worked tirelessly. He begged acquaintances to find him a job. He was always working, day and night. He would leave the house again just minutes after coming home. That was his life.
I'm sorry, really sorry.
He would say, stroking my head with a near-crying face every time he saw me. It's okay. I understood the situation somewhat, even as a child. So, I lived trying not to cause any more trouble. Then my dad passed away. He was overworked.
I'll be back soon.
He said that, but he never returned. When my dad returned home, he put him in a little box, and he was so much lighter. I strangely didn't cry. I felt sad, but seeing my crying mom made me feel like I couldn't cry myself, as if it was my duty. What my dad left us was a lot of debt. After my dad passed away, his sister, Susan, offered for us to live with her.
He left us a lot of debt, and I wish we could pay it off, but we don't have that kind of money. Still, I thought at least we could live together and I could help around the house and take care of Mike and Sarah.
Susan said apologetically. My mom shook her head at Susan's offer.
It would be too much to impose on you, so could you just take care of Mike? I'll figure out a way to settle his debts.
But
Susan suggested living together, but my mom never agreed. Eventually, Susan gave in, and it was decided she would only take care of me. But I couldn't bear to leave my mom's side. I need to stay with my mom and live with her. I don't remember why, but back then, I refused to be taken in by Susan. In the end, Susan and her family agreed to check on us regularly.
Whenever you need anything, just let us know.
She told my mom before leaving with her husband. My mom hugged me tightly. Without saying a word, she just cried and held me close. She worked desperately day and night. I had seen this scene before. Yes, it was exactly like my dad. I became anxious that she would follow the same path as my dad and clung to her, crying every night. After my dad's incident, my mom took breaks from work when she felt unwell to rest. She understood that if she made the same mistake as my dad, I would be left alone, and the debt would fall on me. So, she worked tirelessly without overdoing it. My mom had a treasured possession. It was a set of tableware given to her by a friend during her school days. The dishes were elegant, adorned with light green grass designs. From the moment she received them, my mom became a tableware enthusiast, even as a student. When my dad's business was thriving, she would always buy tableware she liked on our trips. My dad would laugh at her.
I just don't get the appeal of these dishes.
Now, most of my mom's collection had disappeared from our home. The only thing left was the grass-designed tableware from her school days. While he was alive, my dad often told her,
I don't understand the value of this tableware. Probably only you, my dear, can appreciate its worth. So no matter how poor we get, never sell it. You don't need to trade your memories for money to someone who can't appreciate their value.
He was always against selling any of the items with memories attached to them. After my dad died, my mom couldn't cover the debt with her job alone, and eventually, she sold all her tableware collection. I will never forget the look on her face at that time. I still clearly remember her pained, translucent-eyed expression. After selling all her tableware collection, the only things left in our house were dollar store dishes. It's not that dollar store items are inferior. They just lack the aesthetic pleasure of our previous dishes. I realized then that eating isn't just about taste, it's also about enjoyment with the eyes. Due to our poverty, we never had lavish meals or meat, but now we couldn't even enjoy the vibrancy of nice dishes. Our modest table was served daily with the same meal on a dollar store plate. But more than the meal, I hated seeing the look on my mom's face during dinner. I didn't know what to say to my mom, who was eating with an indescribable expression on her face. Hoping to one day see my mom happily looking at tableware again and smiling at the dining table, I decided to work at a tableware company. In front of me was a teacup. Indeed, in Europe, teacups are either vibrantly decorated or subtly elegant, with a variety of beautiful designs. Influenced by the dining table of my childhood, I learned firsthand that beautiful tableware and objects enrich life. After graduating from high school, I worked for a company well known locally for handling luxury tableware. I probably should have gone to college, but I needed to start earning money as soon as possible to pay off the debt. So, I focused my job search on Hazel Tableware, famous for its tableware sales that I loved so much. Since it was a high-end tableware company, the competition was fierce. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I would be hired. Especially since I only had a high school diploma and everyone else had graduated from prestigious universities. I couldn't help feeling inferior. Before I knew it, the interview was nearing its end, and it was time for the final question from Hazel, the president of the company. She asked just one question.
What is your favorite tableware pattern?
I remembered the company's website mentioned she preferred gold decorations. Knowing this, most job candidates answered, I like tableware decorated with gold. I considered tailoring my answer to match her preferences, but I couldn't lie and said honestly, I like tableware with floral and plant designs. Hazel smiled warmly.
Me too. I think tableware with plant and flower designs is lovely.
And with that, the interview concluded. Later, I received a letter of acceptance for employment. With my first paycheck from Hazel Tableware, I bought a piece identical to one from my mom's former collection and gave it to her as my gift. She was overjoyed. Seeing her genuinely happy smile, I couldn't help but tear up. Looking at the tableware again, I appreciated the exquisite design, with delicate greenery and soft reds and blues of the flowers standing out. In my work, I designed many pieces using flowers as motifs, highlighting their beauty within this delicate framework. My colleagues suggested trying different designs, but I always came back to the floral theme. One day, my senior, Gianna, approached me.
Your floral designs are quite popular, especially among the ladies, but sticking to the same design shows you're still green. Oh, and by the way, that's not just my opinion, it's from Hazel's. Speaking of which, Hazel said you're up for the next business trip abroad. Talk about a fast track to success.
Gianna patted my shoulder. Wait, why me? I'm just a newbie, and as Hazel says, I have the flaw of only designing floral patterns. How can someone with such a narrow view like me go on a business trip abroad? While overseas tableware also features floral designs, they are often crafted with different techniques or are more flamboyant than what I was used to.
Maybe that's exactly why, to broaden your horizons and expand your perspectives.
I figured it was a good chance to expand my knowledge. I quickly packed and set off for Europe. Now, I find myself admiring a teacup. I got to see a lot of tableware and had the opportunity to meet with craftsmen. I showed them the tableware I designed and got their opinions, and we discussed what the finish would be like using overseas techniques, spending intensive time together. The highlight was visiting a workshop with an interpreter. A bald, bearded craftsman came out and scolded me.
Get out. I have no words for a young pink who doesn't understand the essence of tableware.
Through the interpreter, I showed him my designs.
What types of plants and flowers are these based on? What's the inspiration?
He asked quickly. At that moment, I painfully realized my own inexperience. I couldn't answer his question. Indeed, I had designed many floral patterns before, but I had never actually created anything based on real plants.
So, you designed this from your imagination. Using real plants as a motif would highlight their beauty even more. What a waste. But this is good in its own way. Well, it passes.
He said this and stroked his beard. I received approval from a local craftsman in a land far from America. It was an exhilarating experience. I was overjoyed that my passion for tableware was recognized even here. One spring, Fred, who came from a local branch office, became my direct supervisor. This encounter with Fred turned out to be the second major upheaval in my life. From his first day of introduction after the transfer, Fred was an odd presence. He bragged about being from a prestigious university, having helped an NGO during his student days, and basically flaunted his impressive life to everyone. However, that alone would have been harmless if I had just ignored it. On his first day, Fred bizarrely started asking everyone about their alma maters.
Mike, I hear you're well liked by seniors, including Gianna. But where did you go to university?
I didn't see how being liked was related to attending a famous university, but I answered while making coffee, thinking it was just small talk. Do you think I'm really liked? I feel like I'm just being saddled with chores. Also, I only graduated from high school. I offered Fred a cup of freshly brewed coffee, but he didn't take it. Fred, here you go. I looked at his face. He looked at me with scorn.
A high school grad. I can't possibly drink coffee made by someone without education. I don't see what's so good about you.
Fred then left somewhere. That's when my hell began.
This guy is just a high school grad. He can't do anything right. Lack of education is tough. Oh.
Fred started making remarks like that in front of my colleagues and juniors. Even in front of our business partners, he said it.
This guy only has a high school diploma. Really, he can't do anything right. So I just wish he'd stop being a nuisance to the company.
Fred said this nonchalantly. At first, my colleagues and juniors defended me.
Mike is really meticulous and skilled at his job.
But Fred began to favor them.
Come on, don't waste your life defending a low education guy. You graduated from a top university, right? You shouldn't be associating with high school grads.
And so, my colleagues stopped engaging with Fred, treating his comments as noise. However, behind the scenes, they would say, "Don't worry about what Fred says," but publicly, they stopped defending me, and I began to feel mentally down. Fred even started to insult my designs, which even European craftsmen had praised.
What is this? A man liking such frail decorations. Hazel likes gold decorations. You know, what's so good about these weeds?
Fred ridiculed my sensibilities daily and even began to harass me. Moreover, the harassment started right before business meetings. The necessary documents would be circulated to everyone except me.
I'll handle the rest, so you go do something else.
Then, when I was assigned tasks, he deliberately not do them, calling me out in front of everyone for unfinished work. Once, when I protested that Fred told me he'd handle it, he yelled at me fiercely.
You dare to blame your own mistakes on your supervisor.
My spirit was worn down by Fred. I couldn't come up with any designs, and work wasn't progressing. He kept calling me incompetent and useless. It was a cycle of these days. Since I started working, I moved out and have been living alone. I haven't told my mom because I don't want to worry her, but the truth is, the exhaustion from work doesn't easily heal in the solitude of my own home. The first to notice my declining state was my girlfriend, Ellie. Ellie and I had been dating for nearly 4 years, just before I joined the company. She was brighter and more active than me, with a wonderful smile. Although we didn't live together, she visited my place several times a week. When I couldn't even eat properly due to the stress from Fred.
Hey, Are you really okay? You'll be soon skinnier than me.
She said, half jokingly but clearly worried. Having experienced my mom's struggles in my childhood, I was afraid of worrying others. So I said with my best smile, I'm okay, I love my job and want to keep working at Hazel Tableware.
That's why your smile seems so sad. You're eating instant meals all the time when I don't cook, right? That's not good for your body.
Ellie embraced my head firmly. At that moment, I flashed back to being strongly, earnestly hugged by my mom when I was young. I realized I was worrying her again, and tears spilled over. My fighting spirit, not to lose to someone like Fred, crumbled before her kindness. The built-up hardship overflowed. My design, he called it effeminate. The design that Hazel, the craftsman, Gianna, and my mom were happy about, he denied it. Ellie just nodded kindly to my words. After talking for a while, I felt my heart grow stronger and more flexible. Sorry for worrying you all this time.
It's okay, don't worry about it. Besides, I've come up with a great idea.
As I apologized, Ellie playfully stuck out her tongue. A great idea. As I tilted my head, she said with a beaming smile,
Let's get married. And I'll support you, Mike.
I accepted her proposal without hesitation. Things progressed smoothly from there. Ellie and I decided on the wedding venue, the number of guests, and even chose her dress together. Every day confirmed that Ellie was an indispensable part of my life. My only regret was that we couldn't have a meeting of our parents. My mom was still repaying debts and, although much better than before, she continued to work every day. Ellie's mom was also a busy woman. Ellie lost her father to illness as a child, and her mom raised her while working. Since Ellie's mom is still active at work, matching her schedule with my mom's was difficult, leading to their first meeting at the wedding venue. I wished they could meet sooner, but since work was the reason, I couldn't complain. Both being from single-parent families, we understood the challenges of family life. It's not just financially. The wedding was set for a few months later.
Since it's a joyous occasion, maybe around May, when the weather is nice would be good. But of course, if you want to do it sooner, that's another story.
Her mother's opinion was also agreed upon by my mom.
I was thinking the same. I'm looking forward to meeting Ellie's mom. I hope I don't make a bad impression with my shabby appearance.
While searching for her best outfit, my mom mumbled,
It'll be fine. And you're not shabby at all, you know? You have great taste.
Noticing Ellie's gaze at the tableware, my mom said shyly,
Sorry for my old-fashioned taste, but it's a treasure to me, the same design as what I received from a friend long ago.
Ellie loved the tableware too.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Flowers and plants are just so lovely.
I felt truly fortunate to have chosen to marry her. After submitting my leave request at work, I informed Ellie. It's not confirmed until approved, but it's not the busy season, so I think it will be approved. Ellie replied immediately.
Got it. Hopefully, that nasty boss doesn't interfere, but he wouldn't go that far, right? It's our wedding after all.
Just as I was about to reply with right, Fred called out loudly,
Hey, Mike, come here.
Wondering if I had made a mistake at work, I hurried to Fred and asked, What's the issue?
What is this?
Fred was waiving the leave request I had submitted in the morning. I had informed the admin about taking time off for my wedding, but it seemed that Fred hadn't gotten the memo. Sorry for the late notice, but I'm getting married and thought I'd take some leave in advance, even though it's a few months away. I explained as diplomatically as possible. Fred scowled and came closer.
Really, the company's dead weight getting married. You think you're in a position to do that? It's absurd that someone like you is taking time off to get married.
Was it because I only graduated high school? I couldn't understand what he was getting at.
And what kind of foolish woman would marry a low-educated guy like you? Sorry, but I can't help but laugh.
He started laughing uproariously. Every day, he only caused trouble for me because I was a high school grad, and now he was insulting my loved one, which was despicable.
Someone like you, a low-level employee, trying to get time off is useless. You're fired.
He laughed and threw my leave request back at me. That's enough. I had no time in my life for someone like him. Just as well, if that's how he wants it. I understood. Then I'll resign. I simply stated it quietly. Then, as a precaution, I pulled out the resignation letter I had kept in my desk and thrust it at Fred. My emotions were numb. Beyond anger, just emptiness. I couldn't even muster any emotion for such a person. Ignoring my disdainful gaze, Fred continued.
Oh, resigning on your own, huh? That means it's a voluntary resignation. Don't rely on unemployment benefits.
Fred took my resignation letter. Yet, he hadn't accepted my leave request. I packed my belongings. It was fortunate that I just didn't have a job to take over. I had plenty of time. Time to devise a plan to bring Fred down. On the wedding day, as planned, many guests attended our ceremony. It's making the venue lively and festive. Especially the tableware used in the ceremony was all high-end from the company I used to work for, Hazel Tableware, with many featuring my mom's favorite floral designs. These were all items I personally selected with my own eyes. I thought it through until I was satisfied, and in some cases, I even designed them myself. Of course, they were there for our enjoyment, but I also considered making sure all the guests, including him, would be pleased. When the ceremony began, the first thing I looked for upon entering the venue was Fred's seat. Yes, Fred was also invited to the ceremony. Not as my guest, but as a guest of the bride, Ellie. In fact, Ellie's mother is Hazel, the current president of Hazel Tableware. In essence, Ellie was the daughter of the company's president. I later learned that Fred had been bragging to his colleagues about receiving an invitation from Ellie.
I've reached a position to be invited by the president's daughter. That's the power of a high-educated man with connections. You all should take a leaf out of my book and work hard.
He must have been over the moon arriving at the venue. The moment Fred saw me, he froze like a statue. He was so caught up, he didn't even check the groom's name. From the shadows, I watched, thinking he must have been surprised at the reception. But no, he truly was a complete fool. During the newlywed speech, Fred's face turned as pale as if he were sick, especially during Ellie's mother and the company president, Hazel's speech. But this was just the beginning. It was too early for him to be turning pale. Soon you'll realize who you've been tormenting all this time. I was laughing inwardly.
Well, I have an important announcement to make. I, Hazel, am planning to step down as the president at the end of this year. And I would like to nominate Mike as the next president.
Hazel ended her speech by introducing me. From the venue, there was a chorus of wow, followed by a round of thunderous applause. I stood up, raising my hand. Fred, who entered my field of vision, had gone beyond pale to completely white. He was practically the same color as the wall behind him. No surprise there. The person he had been harassing was going to be the next president. He must be thinking about his future now. My resignation letter had actually reached Hazel.
Oh, he was a poor performer, so I gave him some strict guidance, and he said he quit. But since he hardly had any work assigned to him, his absence wouldn't be an issue.
Fred said that to Hazel. Hazel did receive my resignation, but kept it on hold. Later, I received a message from her.
I'll keep your resignation for now. If you really want to leave the company, I won't stop you, but I truly think you're fit to be the next president. So please consider it, including the offer to become president.
Honestly, the thought of becoming president felt overwhelming, so I asked her, "Why me?" Hazel answered quietly,
Because you, like me, love floral designs.
and then she smiled kindly. As the mingling time began, Fred had already left. Well, I guess I got some sort of revenge. My mom finally arrived at the venue. Delayed due to her work.
It can't be helped if it's work-related, but we had to start on time because of the waiting guests, even though I felt bad for her.
We had started the ceremony without her.
So sorry I'm late.
My mom apologized to Ellie.
It's okay, don't worry. Besides, you're meeting my mom for the first time. Let me introduce her.
Ellie led her to Hazel. I followed them, and the moment my mom and Hazel saw each other, my mom rushed towards her.
Wait, Hazel, is that you?
No way. Sarah, really?
Hazel approached her excitedly. They held hands, chatting happily.
It's been so long. I've heard you became the president. That's amazing.
My mom said, tearing up.
It seems you've had your share of hardships. Mike told me about it, but I had no idea you were Sarah.
Hazel was crying too. I later found out that they were friends from their school days. Hazel was the one who gave the floral design tableware to my mom.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to sell it, but I had to survive.
My mom apologized.
What are you talking about? That's fine. Look, why don't you take some of this tableware home with you? We have a lot to catch up on. This design, he chose it, you know, you've got a good son.
The two women were giddy like children. I had never seen Hazel so playful before. It was their moment alone, flowing just for them. As an aside, I didn't know until recently that Ellie was Hazel's daughter.
My mom's busy.
She was so vague when I suggested the parents' meeting. And it was only when we were setting the date and venue for the wedding that I was formally introduced to Hazel as her mother. Honestly, my eyes nearly popped out. I was that surprised. My meeting with Ellie dated back to high school, during my frequent visits to the tableware museum managed by Hazel Tableware. Part of my reason for going was that I wanted to work for Hazel Tableware and considered it educational. But mostly I just loved the beautiful designs they created. One day, I found a girl crying in the museum. Feeling sorry for her, I couldn't help but speak up. She had just broken up with her boyfriend during a date there. To me, that was inconceivable. Surrounded by this beautiful tableware. To argue and then break up in such a heavenly place is the height of folly. As I spoke of the joy of admiring tableware with someone who appreciates it, she burst into laughter.
What's your name? You're quite unique, aren't you?
From there, sharing a common interest in tableware, we became friends for a few months before starting to date. So, I just thought she was another tableware enthusiast. Never did I imagine she was the daughter of the tableware company's owner. Ellie herself never spoke about her mother. The reason was that her ex-boyfriend, whom she broke up with at the museum, had been dating her because he knew her mother was the president of the company. She, wary of men after her money, had made a point of not telling me about it, I was later told. A few days after the wedding, Fred submitted his resignation. Frightened by his actions and realizing he had messed with the wrong person, he tried to flee. And he submitted his resignation not to Hazel or me, but to Ellie. He handed it to Ellie, who happened to be visiting the office.
I'm not an employee here, you know?
As Ellie was about to dismiss him coldly, Fred begged her.
I know, but I can't face Hazel or Mike. Please, pass this on for me.
Troubled Ellie was approached by Gianna, who had been promoted to an executive position, to inquire about the situation. After hearing the details, Gianna said with a snicker,
Look at this grown man crying in front of a young lady. I've heard all about what you did. I couldn't interfere since I was in different departments, but you really troubled my dear Junior, didn't you?
Gianna then grabbed Fred by the collar. Ellie stopped her, saying to Fred,
Instead of running away through resignation, why not live with the consciousness of someone who handles beautiful things, with a beautiful spirit? That's the proper way to settle this.
Fred cried and apologized.
I'm sorry.
No, you're apologizing to the wrong person. Go on, apologize now. 3, 2.
Gianna watched the scene, cracking her knuckles with a countdown. Spooked, Fred desperately sought me out, apologizing through tears. Years after that incident, as the president, I poured more effort into product development. Made possible by Ellie's support. After taking office, I decided to launch limited editions of series released in the 70s. While browsing through antique stores, I noticed that quite a few folks are eager to see old collections reprinted. The reissues were a hit, appealing not just to those familiar with the original era but also to young people who found them retro and cute. This success led to rapid company growth. My mom is now financially comfortable. She recently completed her collection, which she had to sell during tough times. Beautiful things transcend time and are loved by people. Observing my mom and Hazel, I truly understood this. What lay in the hearts of these two, who hadn't met for decades, was the beautiful entity of dishware. Now, as the president, I've become capable of introducing beautiful things to the world. I vow to continue confidently sending beautiful things globally.
My name is Emily. My dad runs several businesses, and being the daughter of a president, I grew up in a very affluent household, which perhaps allowed me to develop a very laid-back personality. However, my parents never judged me for it and raised me with plenty of love. Currently, I'm working at my father's company, but before that, I was always involved in animal-related work. I felt it was time to become independent, so I decided to find a job. I was supposed to work in a field related to animals, but due to a sudden vacancy, I ended up working temporarily at my father's company. I keep it a secret that I am the president's daughter because I don't want to be judged differently, and only a few people know about it.
Good morning, Emily.
Morning, Dad.
How's work? It's almost a year now.
I've gotten used to it, and everyone's so kind, so I'm enjoying it.
That's good to hear.
Oh. Don't forget our promise.
Of course, I'll make sure to increase the staff with the next HR changes so you can lead.
The promise with my dad was to have someone else take over my position during the next HR transition. Once the handover is complete, my responsibilities will end. I plan to pursue a job I love. Even though it was my father's company, working there as an office worker made me realize it's not quite the right fit for me, so I'm thinking of starting my own business. I'm looking forward to HR to find someone for my position, so I can prepare for this. My parents have always known about my love for animals and have allowed me to interact with many of them. Ever since I was a child, I had little interest in studying, and my test scores in elementary school were always dismal. However, seeing how I could easily befriend any animal, my parents quickly recognized this as my strength and never nagged me about my studies. Instead, to develop my strength, they would make time to gift me experiences at animal-related events and places. I have an older brother, 2 years older, who is the complete opposite of me. He loves studying. He was interested in management and said he would take over our father's company since middle school, so I think my father was also reassured knowing the company would be in my brother's hands. I was truly raised freely and without constraints. While I managed to endure compulsory education, school was my only source of stress. The pressure to conform with everyone else was hard for me. As a child, I was really bad at forming relationships with people and spent most of my time with animals. I tearfully told my parents that I didn't want to go to college. They weren't surprised and calmly began to talk to me. They said it was okay not to go to college. But they wanted me to promise that I would never stop learning. Instead of going to college, I started volunteering at a ranch that cares for retired racehorses. My interest in horses began in middle school, influenced by a book I read. They say that horses can understand when people are suffering, and they possess the power to heal. Intrigued by the mysterious abilities of horses, I eagerly began volunteering. I became captivated by the charm of horses, much more than I had imagined. Horses are truly mysterious creatures. If I'm ever slightly down, they come close and gaze at me with gentle eyes. It's as if they're asking, "Are you okay?" I loved having heart-to-heart conversations with horses. The people I met there were all so kind, and even I, who was terrible at socializing, could fit in. It seems I can connect with people who love animals. After volunteering there for 3 years, I then started volunteering at an animal shelter. Not only dogs and cats, but also birds and many other unusual animals were being cared for there. While the circumstances varied, initially seeing the injured animals was tough, and it almost broke my spirit. However, when a fellow volunteer told me, "Our job is to heal these animals' wounded hearts and help them find new families," I realized that although it's hard to see the injured ones, there is a lot of hope in looking ahead, and I grew to love this work. At the point they were rescued, these animals were safe. Realizing this, I felt motivated to protect them with all my might, leading me to propose various ideas and take initiative. It was a significant event for me. I was terribly afraid of expressing my opinions because I had often been told that my views were strange, which made me fear speaking up. I lost my energy because I was vaguely fighting such fears, and I began to hate the idea of school. It's not that they didn't like me or that they were harassing me. People around me were kind, but I was afraid to be my true self, making me feel uncomfortable. It was the animals that enabled me to start sharing my ideas and act proactively. No matter what others thought, I wasn't afraid if it meant creating a better environment for the animals. After working there for 4 years, I believe my interpersonal skills greatly improved. I learned how to communicate with people on equal terms and gained a lot of confidence in myself. Most people probably learn this during their school years, but I was clumsy and took a little longer. However, it all worked out in the end. Since I've always wanted to run my own animal shelter and needed work experience, and I was also thinking about becoming independent from my parents, entering the workforce became my next goal. This led to me joining my father's company, which has been my life journey so far. While my path has been somewhat different, thanks to my supportive parents, the trauma of being different was minimal, and I successfully stepped into the working world. Everyone at my current job is really nice, and even though it's not the field I want to be in, I enjoy working there every day. I started with the same salary as any other new employee, without any special treatment despite being the president's daughter. Initially, only my father and one other person in this company knew that I was the president's daughter. In fact, while everyone is nice, there's one particularly troublesome person. Even though my people skills have improved than before, I'm still clumsy and often unsure how to handle situations, especially with this person. Others do help me when they notice, but when I'm alone and confronted by this person, I can only wait silently for the time to pass. I don't want to complain to my father, it feels a bit childish to do so.
Emily, good work today. I'll be in the lounge.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be there soon. He is my fiancé, Alex. He proposed on our 1-year anniversary of dating, and we're now engaged. Alex and I hit it off immediately after I joined the company and started dating soon after. We both love animals, and he's someone with whom I can feel secure and open up. Alex is the only one at the company who knows I'm the daughter of the president, and he's kept it a secret too. He even met my father shortly after we started dating, and they get along well. Unlike me, he can do his job well and is highly regarded by his boss and proud of his fiancée. I am so thankful that he values me, including the parts of me that are different. Every day I want to treat him the same way.
Hey, Emily, where are you going?
Oh. Mark, good work. I was just going on my lunch break.
Lunch break, huh? With your low education level and lack of skills, shouldn't you be working harder instead of taking breaks?
Well.
It's really troublesome that you can't even hold a conversation.
This unpleasant person is Mark. He's the head of my department, and he always makes snide remarks about my lack of formal education. Perhaps my slower pace at work annoys him, but I always complete all my tasks within the allotted time and don't make many mistakes. It feels completely unfair to be treated so harshly just for not having a degree. Feeling a bit down, I head to the lounge where Alex is.
Emily, over here.
Hey, Alex, good work today.
What's wrong? You seem less cheerful than before.
I ran into Mark.
Did he say something again? Shall I have a word with him?
No, please don't. I don't want to make a fuss over it. Alex is always on my side. I think he would talk to Mark if I asked, but I don't want to worry my father or escalate the situation, so I end up just venting without taking any action.
By the way, did you see the email from Mark?
Email? No, I haven't. Did he send me one?
It's about the company's 10th anniversary party. He's organizing it.
A party, huh? Dad would be pleased.
I know you're not fond of parties, but let's go for your father's sake, okay?
Yeah, I guess I will. I think I'll be leaving the company soon anyway, so I'll attend this time.
Great. I'll forward the email to you just in case.
Thanks. After lunch break, I returned to my desk to check my email. There was no detailed email from Mark. Perhaps it was a mass email, and he forgot to include me. I try not to think too much about it and check the email Alex forwarded. The party is next month on a Saturday at a hotel near the company. Everyone is excited and planning to dress up, so I consider booking a hair appointment. With that thought, I get back to work.
Are you still working on that? Can't you finish it up sooner?
Sorry, but I'm done with this part, so here you go.
Normally, employees prioritize work according to what their supervisor needs, right? You lack consideration.
I'll keep that in mind for next time. I gulped and replied yes, but I had doubts because I was working according to the priorities I had been taught, so I checked with the on-the-job trainer who had been teaching me the job. It turned out I was doing it correctly after all. While I understand that creating a conducive environment for the supervisor is part of an employee's job, this situation felt particularly unjust and it made me angry. That's why I hate dealing with people. Back at my desk, I muttered to myself in frustration. I was also upset with myself for not being able to navigate social interactions as smoothly as others, or to respond and settle matters effectively.
Emily, hey, you finished work. Did you see the email?
Alex, thanks for forwarding it. Yeah, I saw it.
What's wrong? Did the manager say something again?
Well, yeah, I really struggle with people. I wish I could be with horses.
Emily, you're human too. How about we go horseback riding on our next date?
Oh, I'd love that. Yes, please.
Then it's settled.
Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome.
Alex really knows how to handle me well. Alex knows how to lift my spirits and always tries to keep me smiling. It's rare for me to open up to someone this much, so my parents were initially surprised, but ultimately they were thrilled about the engagement. I haven't announced my engagement at the company yet, but plan to do so after the 10th anniversary party, including telling my manager. I hope I won't hear any mean comments again. Such negative thoughts sprout easily in me. The following week, Alex kept his promise and took me horseback riding. Horses are truly wonderful. I felt so healed and strongly desired to work with animals again. That evening, we planned to have dinner with my parents at my childhood home, so we went there together. We're home.
Good evening.
Oh, you're here. Sorry for the trouble, Alex.
Not at all. I've been looking forward to it.
Dad, were you at work today?
No, I took the day off.
I saw dress shoes by the entrance.
I went out to buy a shoe for the 10th anniversary party today.
Another suit.
Now, let's go inside.
My father has a habit of buying suits for every occasion, filling our home's closet with his collection. He likes to wear a different suit for each event as a way to commemorate the occasion. Seeing this makes me suddenly realize just how wealthy our family is. I can't help but think it's wasteful to buy a new suit every time. I always end up grumbling, and my dad soothes me. When will you ever have enough suits, Dad?
It's not about having enough, you know. It's about the memory of the occasion. I even keep my suit from your baby dedication ceremony.
That's actually quite nice.
Hey, Alex.
Sorry, but it does sound nice, like having photos of memories.
You get it, Alex. It's a sensation of memories that only I can understand.
Then at least buy just a tie. Buying a whole suit every time seems too much.
I guess you still don't quite understand, Emily. Anyway, you two are coming to the party, right?
Of course, we'll celebrate without letting anyone realize your connection to Emily's father.
Right, our relationship is official at work, but no one knows about Dad and me yet. It's a bit nerve-wracking.
You won't be sitting at the same table, so just smile and you'll be fine.
Exactly. As Alex says, there's no need to be overly conscious. Let Alex support you.
Please, Alex.
I've got this. I'm looking forward to it.
At my family home, it's always like this, with Alex and my dad teaming up, and my arguments hardly ever prevail. But their interaction is so natural that I end up smiling too, and eventually, the conversation shifts, leading to a completely different conclusion than I initially anticipated. Well, it's not like we were discussing anything major, so it's okay. Men are curious creatures. On the day of the 10th anniversary party, I went to the beauty salon in the morning and, unusually, had makeup done. I like dressing up, but I'm terrible with makeup, usually settling for just foundation and lipstick, so having a full makeover was exciting and felt nice. I wonder if Alex will be surprised. When I returned from the salon, my dad was still lounging in his casual clothes. Dad, you're still in your loungewear. Are you sure about the time?
I'll be going about an hour after you. Wow, Emily, you look sharp.
Sharp, huh, thanks. Dad was relaxed, saying his chauffeur would pick him up later. I left a bit early for the venue because I wasn't used to walking in heels. It took about 30 minutes to get to the station where I was meeting Alex, so I quickly changed and left the house. Alex.
Emily, you look great in that dress. You did your makeup today, pretty.
Thanks, I feel a bit embarrassed.
You're always pretty, but it's nice to see a change like this, ho.
Seeing Alex a bit shy was adorable, making me think I should learn more about makeup. We usually don't hold hands when around company colleagues, so Alex just gave me a wry smile as I wobbled in my heels. What a pity that he was so pleased with the makeup.
Are you okay? Want to walk barefoot to the venue?
I wish, but then I'd run my stockings. I'll manage.
It's quiet now, so hang on to me.
I decided to lean on Alex's arm before reaching the venue, feeling a bit embarrassed. I really want to improve my feminine skills. Lost in these self-deprecating thoughts, we quickly arrived at the venue.
Emily, I'm going to use the restroom. Can you check in first?
Got it. Wobbling, I searched for the registration desk. It seemed our company's event was in the furthest room. Instead of the organizing manager, a hotel staff member was at the reception. As I started to check in and gave my name, the receptionist began to look unsettled. Apparently, my name wasn't on the list. They hurried off saying they'd check immediately. Just my luck. I waited blankly at the reception when the manager and the hotel staff returned from inside.
Oh, this is about you. Don't worry, There's no seat for you, so it's fine. This way, the number of seats inside should match the list.
With that, Mark quickly headed back to the venue, leaving the hotel staff awkwardly returning to the desk. I was momentarily confused by what had happened, but instinctively, I called out to Mark. Mark.
What does the uninvited guest want?
What exactly is going on here?
What do you mean?
Despite my seriousness and desperation, Mark responded with a smirk. I struggled to contain my irritation and tried to understand the situation. Why is my name not on the list?
Why would it be? Obviously, because there's no seat for you inside.
Why is that?
What do you mean why? I don't recall inviting you.
But isn't it strange that all employees were invited except me?
Did you even receive an invitation email?
Invitation email.
Everyone invited got an email detailing today's event. You didn't receive it, did you? How embarrassing to show up at a party you weren't invited to. I'm speechless.
The email I thought was missing due to an error was deliberately not sent by Mark. Realizing this, I nearly panicked to the point of hyperventilation, but managed to keep my composure. This was clearly harassment. Why wasn't I invited?
Don't you understand?
I don't.
Talking to you is so frustrating. You're slow in speaking and acting, bad at picking up hints, and not considerate. That's why I dislike people with low education.
But that's not relevant right now, is it? I was on the verge of tears from frustration at that moment, but refused to cry in front of him, though I probably looked tearful. But I'm sure I must have had tears in my eyes.
It's very relevant. This is our company's 10th anniversary. Wouldn't it be embarrassing to have someone with a high school education like you there? The president would surely prefer to celebrate with only the capable employees.
So, the president said that?
You don't get it, do you? That's why I said you're slow on the uptake. Unlike you, I can read between the lines and know what the president expects. There's no place for someone with a high school education like you here. Go home.
I understand. I don't agree, but if that's truly what the president wants, I should trust you, Mark.
You got quiet when I mentioned the president. Of course. Trust me, I'm educated and smart. Now go home.
Excuse me. I struggled to hold back the rising frustration and tears. As I turned and walked towards the exit, tears began to fall. I needed to contact Alex. Where could he be? With only 7 minutes to the party's start, I wondered if he had already gone inside. Sorry, Dad. I felt terribly guilty for feeling like an embarrassment at my father's company's anniversary party. I must be unfit for the professional world. I'm sorry for being such an embarrassing daughter. I thought as I cried.
Emily, what happened?
Oh, no.
Let's calm down and step outside.
Meeting Alex by chance, I felt a sense of relief and my tears wouldn't stop. We stepped outside, and I drank the beverage Alex had bought for me. After my breathing, which had been close to hyperventilating, settled a bit, I told him everything. I'm sorry, it seems I'm really not cut out for this corporate world.
You shouldn't be apologizing, Emily. Nobody thinks that way, and even if they did, what the manager did was harassment.
But you must be embarrassed to have a girlfriend like me.
Not a girlfriend, a fiancée. And I'm not embarrassed at all. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Alex. What should I say to Dad? He must be so disappointed.
Emily, you will attend the party. Leave it to me.
But how can I face everyone after being made to cry like that?
It's okay, trust me. I have a plan. Just promise me one thing. When you enter the venue, do it with confidence. So, go to the bathroom and fix your makeup. I'll wait for you.
Okay. I understand. Following Alex's advice, I headed to the bathroom. With just 3 minutes to go before the start, I didn't want to go, but I trusted Alex. What's going to happen? My heart won't stop racing. After quickly touching up the makeup around my eyes, I step out of the bathroom and see Dad.
Emily, I heard everything from Alex. It must have been tough, but it's okay now.
Your father knows everything. Emily, when your name is called, come into the venue. Remember the promise. Enter with confidence. Okay.
My father hugged me, and I nearly cried again, but I held back to not ruin my freshly fixed makeup. Alex seemed to have something in mind, and though I was confused, I decided to follow their lead. As the party started.
Hello everyone. Thank you all for gathering here. I am Mark, serving as the organizer and MC for today.
Standing outside with my father, I was anxious to find out what was going to happen next. Hearing Mark's cheerful voice from inside sent shivers down my spine.
Our company has reached its 10th anniversary thanks to everyone's hard work. As a department head, I, Mark, have been leading a fulfilling life thanks to the support of our excellent employees.
Applause echoed from the venue. I wondered how Alex felt listening to this.
We will soon have a special address from Mr. Robert, and today, by special request of Mr. Robert, we have a surprise guest joining us, so please look forward to it. Now, let's welcome the President. Everyone, please applaud.
As applause filled the room again, my father entered the venue. Standing outside alone, my anxiety grew, and my legs trembled. It's okay, it's going to be okay. I whispered to myself like a mantra, waiting for the moment to come. Soon, my father began his speech. It was soothing compared to Mark's voice. It's natural, I suppose, since he is my father.
Thank you all for gathering today. And thank you, Mark, for planning and executing this event. Please allow me a moment to speak.
My father was expressing superficial thanks to Mark. Even though I know it's not heartfelt, it still makes me feel uneasy. I kept chanting my mantra, hoping for a deeper meaning.
I run several companies, and none of them could have grown without your hard work. I want to express my gratitude once again. Thank you. There's something else I want to say. Family is the most important thing to me. I believe everyone here has family, friends, and loved ones who are precious. Please cherish them. I couldn't be in this position without my family. People who don't value others won't be valued in return. It may seem obvious, but some people seem to forget this recently. As the head of this company, I want to make it clear. I am immensely grateful for my family and will do anything to protect them.
The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. I was deeply moved by my father's speech. I'm the one who should be grateful for raising such an unconventional daughter with care. Now it should be my turn to repay the favor, yet I've caused more trouble and worry.
Thank you. Remember, your colleagues at work are also your companions. Never intentionally hurt them. If I find anyone doing so, I will take strict action. Understood. Today is a special day, and I want to introduce someone who has been a driving force behind my work and who stepped in to fill a sudden vacancy in our company. Without this person, we wouldn't be celebrating today. Please, come inside.
The room buzzed with excitement, then burst into loud applause and cheers. Mark began to speak into the microphone as if to address the crowd.
Now, let me introduce you. Please welcome the president's daughter.
The doors of the venue opened. Guided by the staff, I enter the venue. My legs trembling. It's okay, it's okay. While chanting to myself like a spell, I kept my promise to Alex by holding my head high and walking straight ahead, looking towards where my father was.
What?
Thank you for the sudden invitation today, and I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has supported my father daily. The venue erupted in surprise and uproar, with exclamations heard throughout. My colleagues, who had been friendly, were in shock. Alex looked at me proudly, nodding in approval. I apologize for keeping silent until now. Thanks to everyone who treated me well without knowing I am the president's daughter, I have enjoyed my work every day. I managed to persevere through the year because of everyone but one who patiently taught me, including my on-the-job trainers. Before bowing, I glanced at Mark. He was aware of his snide remarks and now pale and shocked that I was the one entering as the president's daughter. Once I started speaking, I couldn't stop. As my father mentioned earlier, we should value our colleagues. I believe the workplace, where we spend most of our day, should be comfortable. But I have been harassed constantly throughout this year. I apologize for bringing this up at a celebration, but today, I reached my breaking point. As I was close to tears, many voices from the audience encouraged me, saying, "You can do it." With the crowd's support, I felt empowered to expose Mark. Mark, who called me a low-educated high school graduate and constantly complained despite my not doing anything wrong, and who went so far as to not invite me to today's party. Mark was at a loss for words. The venue fell silent, hanging on my every word. My father looked at me, signaling to speak freely. Alex gripped my hand, watching intently. Suddenly, you have nothing to say. Had I told you earlier that I was the president's daughter, you wouldn't have treated me this way. Your true nature was revealed because I didn't disclose it. It took me a year to speak up, but I will no longer be silent. I am ready to fight this thoroughly. After a brief silence, the room erupted into a standing ovation. Because everyone has been supporting me behind the scenes, they are aware of the situation. They agreed with me because I spoke up about it.
Fight? What do you mean?
We'll take it where it needs to go.
That, Mr. Robert, this is just a small misunderstanding.
Emily, you did well. Leave the rest to me.
Today, I will call him as usual. Dad. Congratulations on the 10th anniversary. The atmosphere in the venue soared, and chants of my name began to echo. It was a bit embarrassing, but seeing Mark's pale face and being part of my father's significant celebration made everything worthwhile.
I know the speech was a little out of sync with the party, but she is a clumsy girl. Please look at her warmly. Now I will conclude my speech.
After my father's closing remarks, the formalities gave way to a more relaxed buffet-style dinner. The tables were cleared away for a standing setup, so I took off my heels to join in. I enjoyed the evening meal with Dad and Alex. Many people approached to commend my bravery. Some people were surprised to learn I'm the president's daughter and approached me, but I asked them to treat me as usual.
Well, Mr. Robert, I'm terribly sorry.
What exactly are you misunderstanding?
Yes.
It's not me who should be apologizing, right? It should be Emily.
I'm really sorry.
The apology seemed reluctant, with a sullen expression. Alex and I exchanged glances and shrugged our shoulders. My father was extremely upset with Mark's attitude. What's with that attitude? Can't you treat people as equals?
Yikes, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Surprised by my father's rare outburst, Mark knelt down. The onlookers snickered and took pictures of the scene. This must have been a testament to Mark's character. No one defended him. After taking photos, everyone returned to their dinner. I didn't want to interact with Mark anymore or even see his face, so I moved to get more food and sat in a chair along the wall. Mark remained kneeling, motionless.
I'll inform you of your consequences later. Be prepared.
Please, Mr. Robert. Anything but firing me.
While Mark cried, my father went around greeting each employee, leaving him behind. After that, the party ended peacefully, and it was time to go home. I no longer needed to hide being my father's daughter, so I got a ride with him. My feet were hurting, and, of course, Alex was with us. Dad, Alex, thank you so much for today. I can't believe I was able to speak in front of all those people.
You were great.
Oh, you were magnificent. You've really grown up.
Grow up? I'm already in my 30s, you know. Actually, it was Alex who had told Mark just before that Mr. Robert wanted to bring his daughter along. Unaware that I was the daughter, Mark had prepared everything, saying he would do whatever Mr. Robert wished. Afterward, my father decided to fire Mark. Indeed, it was decided that excessive harassment and educational discrimination must not be tolerated. He would have made the same decision even if the victim had been someone else, as he explained during a company-wide meeting, ensuring everyone understood that our company does not tolerate harassment. I've never seen anyone as mean as Mark in this company, so I'm not worried. Even so, the future remains uncertain. If the current employees, who are older and more experienced, must enforce this strictly, otherwise, we might have victims again. This must be avoided at all costs. Seizing this opportunity, my father decided to conduct training on harassment and the importance of recognizing discrimination across all the companies he owns. Especially those in managerial positions are to be rigorously retrained. Meanwhile, Alex and I started preparing for our wedding. It was going to be a small ceremony with family only, but it was my dream, so we visited many places to find the perfect location, yet none felt right. Seeing me disheartened, Alex made a suggestion. It was such an incredible idea that it brought me to tears. The idea was to have the wedding at a ranch with horses. There couldn't have been a place more perfect for us. With the venue set, preparations progressed smoothly, and only the big day awaited. After the wedding, I decided to quit my job. I made up my mind to establish an animal sanctuary, a dream and goal of mine from the past. I had been saving up for this, but upon getting married and becoming independent, my father offered to finance it, telling me to use the savings for ourselves, which allowed me to start without worrying about finances, and I felt relieved. I understand that my situation is not the norm, but I am grateful for the environment I have been given and will live appreciating it. Using my own experiences, I plan to thoroughly educate the employees who will work with me, turning my past hurts into positive action. I've always somewhat hidden the fact that I am the daughter of the president, but something has changed. I wasn't born choosing to be the daughter of a president, nor am I causing anyone misfortune. I realized it's okay to redistribute the advantages I've been given to those in need, including animals. This realization has lightened my spirits and given me the confidence to communicate with others. I am the daughter of the president. So what?
What's so great about such a low-spec man?
My boss, known around the office as the handsome manager, said this with an unnaturally fresh smile. He has looked down on me, an older, high school educated regular employee, since the day he transferred. It was the same even at my wedding. There wasn't a hint of a blessing in his attitude.
You're so beautiful, yet you have such unusual taste. A woman like you could find a much higher spec partner.
The faces of the employees around us turned pale. If their thoughts were spoken aloud, it would be, "Manager, you've done. It's one thing to put me down, but this time, it even made my wife feel terrible." I had a ton to say to my boss, but I kept silent. I didn't want to ruin the vibe of our wedding, which is a major life event. It was my wife who spoke up against the boss's remarks.
Having you as a boss, I really feel sorry for all your employees.
The next day, when I went to the HR department's floor, I couldn't find the manager anywhere. And for good reason, because he had unknowingly said something he shouldn't have to someone he definitely shouldn't have. My name is John Hart, a 35-year-old rank-and-file employee. I work in the HR department of a sports equipment manufacturer. At 35, you'd think I'd have some responsibility. That's what people often think, but I'm just a rank-and-file employee handling all sorts of miscellaneous tasks within the company. Even in such a position, it's generally assumed that if you're a company employee, you've at least graduated from college. However, I'm just a high school graduate for some reasons. After graduating from high school, I had no goal and worked part-time. It was this company that picked me up from that aimless state. To repay the favor, I worked diligently every day behind the scenes to ensure that the employee's performance is maximized. To be honest, it bothers me to see employees of my same age rising through the ladder. But at the time, I was completely exhausted from competing with anyone. So, I never aimed for promotions by getting certifications, sucking up to bosses at drinking parties, or promoting myself. In fact, even when the director suggested I get promoted, I declined, stating it was too premature for me.
John, you've been with the company for over 10 years now, right? You understand HR departments work well and are highly respected by the staff. Maybe it's time for you to show your true capabilities as a manager.
The director, Robert, has always looked out for me. He is the ideal boss. He notices the extra tasks I silently take on without anyone else realizing. I did want to repay the director's kindness, but I couldn't make up my mind. I appreciate the offer, but I'm uncomfortable with leading others or giving orders. If that's all right, I'd like to keep doing what I'm doing now.
If you insist, I won't force you, but you should think about it before you start a family. Once you have kids, it's not guaranteed that both parents can work. You'll have expenses for education and housing, and while it's not much, being in a managerial position does come with extra allowances. You might be in a tight spot if you keep this mindset.
Apart from me, there was no one else in the HR department who met the criteria for promotion to manager. My refusal to accept the promotion offer sent the HR department back to square one. As a result, a transfer from another department was decided. The new manager appointed was Thomas Wilson. He is 5 years younger than me and 30 years old. He's tall and slender but has muscular arms visible at a glance. He's what you'd call lean and muscular. The fresh-cased handsome new arrival caused quite a stir among the female staff of the HR department, but it was only for a moment. As soon as Thomas began his introduction, the room fell silent.
Hello everyone. I've been appointed as the new manager of the HR department, Thomas Wilson. I studied business administration in college and have obtained national certifications as a certified public accountant and a financial planner. My mission is to improve the operational efficiency of the HR department and enhance the capabilities of our staff. I encourage you all not to be constrained by past norms, but to fully embrace my instructions and guidance.
Thomas was a highly ambitious individual. Being appointed a manager at 30 seemed a significant achievement to me, but he was still in a hurry, feeling it was not enough. What I learned later was that, although Thomas often boasted about his academic credentials, he had failed to get into his first choice college and ended up attending one that was a rank lower. So, while he appeared confident, he secretly harbored a serious inferiority complex about his educational background. It was intended that I would be promoted to manager, but he must have heard that I turned down the offer. Knowing that a high school graduate had declined his current position leaves Thomas somewhat unsettled. He might have been trying to maintain his self-esteem by belittling me, assuming I was only a high school graduate.
You're a high school graduate, aren't you? Can't study, can't go to college, and can barely manage the bare minimum in human relations. Someone who can't take responsible actions surely can't lead a team in an organization. Though, I doubt anyone would follow you in the first place.
Maybe you're right. I'll handle any menial task. I didn't want to sour the atmosphere in the HR department, so I decided to fully go along with Thomas. However, a gloomy air started to envelop the HR department. The director, noticing this and worried, commented,
Thomas originally tended to emphasize educational background too much. When he was in the sales department, he wouldn't listen to those with lower education and even judge clients based on their academic credentials. I thought moving to the HR department and gaining some career experience might help him build confidence and become more relaxed, even though it meant promoting him to a manager in a different department.
From my perspective, the manager seems well educated enough.
His envy is too strong, and he's letting his complexes get the better of him. There will be unpleasant moments, but please look after him for a while.
Given these circumstances, the director discreetly assigned me to be Thomas' support. This turned out to be an incredibly difficult task. Thomas, with his quick wit and eloquence, did have the makings of an excellent salesman. However, he utterly lacked the ability to care for, respect, and develop others. Within less than a week, the HR department staff had distanced themselves from him. Even though Thomas was the issue, we couldn't let this disrupt our work. So, I went around speaking to each person individually, asking them to be patient because the manager is still getting used to his position, so please bear with us for a while. I had a reason for wanting to quietly settle the turmoil in the HR department. In fact, 1 month after Thomas transferred, I was going to have my wedding. I have to invite Thomas as my boss, obviously. The truth is, I don't want to worsen our relationship with the department head any more than it already is.
The wedding is coming up soon. My dad, mom, and even grandpa are really looking forward to it. It's a shame grandma passed away a few years ago. I wish she could have seen me in my wedding dress.
I'm sure she's watching over you from somewhere. How about we bring her photo? That way, we can show your bridal look to Grandma, too. Let's make sure to reserve a special seat for her." Hearing my suggestion, Ashley seemed to have an epiphany.
That's a brilliant idea. I have a photo from when we went on a trip abroad. She really loved that picture, so I'll bring it to the venue.
Ashley is my fiancée. She quit her job to prepare for the wedding, but until recently, she was working as an office worker at a certain company. She's a kind, serious, and great cook. My parents think she's too good for me, but they're happy nonetheless. I'm just a high school graduate and a regular employee, so I don't make a lot of money. We can't afford a lavish wedding, but Ashley is grateful and happy with my intentions. I can't help but feel saved by Ashley's subtle kindness. Now, I'd like to talk about how I met Ashley. Ashley was an employee at a client company of the place I work. We met when she had just joined her company as a new employee. Ordering necessary supplies is an important task in the HR department. Ashley's company deals with office supplies. Therefore, our transactions took place throughout the year. Now, Ashley can take care of various things, but she was very clumsy when she first joined. There were notable mistakes in ordering supplies and issuing documents. However, through our interactions, I came to know she is a hard-working, serious, and sincere person. Eventually, I found myself having feelings for her, but since she was a client's employee, I kept my special feelings to myself. We got closer not through work, but in our private lives. I work at a sports equipment manufacturer, but I was originally a die-hard baseball kid. I batted second and played shortstop. There was a time when I aimed for the National High School Baseball Championship or the professional baseball world, spending every day thinking about baseball. Due to my job, I had only been watching baseball for about 10 years, but then I started playing again by chance.
John, your play is always really good to watch. You're not a home run hitter, but you rack up hits that lead to scores, and the success rate of your bints is impressive. There was a pro baseball player known as a bint master back in the day, and John, you have that vibe.
No, that's definitely an overstatement. When I was younger, I thought I could become a baseball player, but the results honestly show it's not such an easy world.
No world goes exactly as you wish, but having played baseball, you must have developed the ability to look around you, especially playing shortstop. You need to keep an eye not just on the area between second and third base, but also from the shortstop to second base gap.
The man who said this while narrowing his eyes is Paul Smith. He's an 80-year-old who has demonstrated his abilities as a president of a company for many years. Recently, he handed over his position to his son and stepped back, now acting more as a chairman. Nowadays, he's more passionate about managing a community baseball team than running the company. Playing shortstop, you sometimes have to run towards center field or left field indeed. I'm not sure how much awareness I have, but it might indeed use a lot of stamina.
Maybe it's because you're looking around that you use so much stamina. Otherwise, you couldn't cover bases for steals or pickoffs. It's also the key to initiating double plays and relay plays.
Being praised by the organizer of the community baseball team, I felt a bit embarrassed and my face turned red. It's been years since someone praised me like this. The last time I was praised was back in middle school. Of course, I must have been praised as an adult too, but strangely, my childhood memories are still vivid.
What's wrong? You're blushing so much. I just spoke the truth. Why are you getting embarrassed?
When I noticed Ashley was behind me, It's actually quite coincidental, but while working at the company, Ashley was also active as the manager of our amateur baseball team. There were a few baseball enthusiasts among the employees at Ashley's company. Through our business exchanges, it became known that I used to play baseball seriously, and the suggestion to join the amateur baseball team came through another employee from a different company we were doing business with. Of course, I was also aware that Ashley was the manager. Although I had sworn never to play baseball again, I also wanted to get closer to Ashley, so I ended up joining the team impulsively. That's the whole story of how I started playing amateur baseball. While our favorite pro baseball teams were different, Ashley had enjoyed watching baseball since she was a kid. Especially in the hot summer, Ashley took on all sorts of chores, from making cold drink to setting up tents. If Ashley was in trouble, I would help her without hesitation. Gradually, when Ashley had a problem, she would turn to me for help. As we continued like this, we became close, and we started to see each other as special. Ashley, please marry me. I only have a high school diploma, and my options for departments to join or teams to advance in are limited. So, I can't expect much in terms of career advancement in the future, but I'll do my best for your happiness. At that moment, I also had the feeling that I would do things I wasn't good at for Ashley's happiness. Perhaps she saw through my heart, because Ashley smiled and said,
You don't have to force yourself. I was drawn to your kind personality that cares for everyone. Playing so that everyone can shine. That's the position you excel in the most.
Ashley didn't care at all that I only had a high school diploma and became my lifelong partner. Meeting such a wonderful woman and being able to marry her was something I never imagined. That's why I am truly grateful to Ashley from the bottom of my heart. Now, let's return to the present, but that's why I didn't want to worsen my relationship with Thomas and dampen the joyful atmosphere of the wedding. On the day of the wedding, relatives, friends, colleagues, and bosses from our respective companies rushed to the venue to celebrate our marriage. It was a small wedding, but it was filled with the warm hearts of people. During the reception, everyone came to pour beer along with words of congratulations. I thought the happy time would continue peacefully like this until then, but reality wasn't that sweet. Just as the reception was about to end, the situation took a turn. Thomas, who had just joined the company, came to pour beer for me. Honestly, I didn't think he would behave as usual in front of my colleagues and bosses, including me and Ashley. However, Thomas handed me a beer bottle and instructed me to pour it into his glass.
I came all the way here even though I just transferred, and we haven't had much interaction. Besides, it'd be weird if I, with a higher education, poured beer for you while you were bowing down to me, right?
Well, yeah, that might be true. I was so surprised by Thomas's attitude that I became flustered in my response. Thomas had a habit of bringing up educational backgrounds whenever he didn't like something someone said. He mentioned low-level college, high school diploma, and vocational school graduation, and so on. Even though he was like that, he was still my boss in this company. So, reluctantly, I decided to invite him to the wedding. Other department heads and managers who appreciated me also came to the ceremony. Therefore, I also hoped that attending the wedding would be a good opportunity for Thomas, who was isolated in the HR department. However, the result was completely the opposite.
What was good about someone as low-spec as him?
With his refreshing looks, Thomas is also known as the handsome manager. There are also troublesome behaviors due to his education-oriented mindset, so of course, it's not a 100% complimentary nickname. However, Thomas seems to be aware of his own handsomeness. With an unnaturally bright smile, he looked at me and Ashley.
For someone as beautiful as you have quite peculiar tastes. A woman like you could surely find a more high-spec partner.
There was no hint of congratulations in his tone. In my mind, I thought, just as I expected. In fact, when I handed him the invitation, there were some concerning signs in Thomas's behavior. I personally handed out wedding invitations to the employees in the HR department. It's a fact that their precious day off would be wasted just because we happen to work in the same department. I handed out the invitations myself to show my sincerity. Since we had talked about getting engaged, everyone genuinely congratulated us with heartfelt wishes. However, Thomas's reaction was completely different. He glanced at the invitation but never made eye contact with me. Without even looking at the contents, he casually placed the invitation on the desk. His indifference left me speechless.
Why did you choose this week for the wedding? This time of the year coincides with the budget deadline, so the whole company is in chaos. If you're going to drag employees out, you should consider not only your own happiness, but also the situation of those around you. Oh, what a mess, what a mess.
Thomas began to complain about the wedding date, although it wasn't clear what exactly was bothering him. Glancing around, the other employees seemed unsure of how to intervene and wore troubled expressions. Looking down, continuing the discussion about the wedding at this point would only inconvenience the other employees. Reluctantly, I surrendered completely. I apologize for not considering your schedule. If you're busy, it's perfectly fine if you can attend.
What are you talking about? In this kind of situation, it's the boss who should give a congratulatory speech. Are you implying that you don't care about me? Due to my position, I have to give a wedding gift. I find it wasteful to give you a gift, but I have to do it anyway, so I've included it in my schedule.
No, I didn't expect you to attend, so please don't worry about the gift. It's really okay. Feeling the urge to escape from this situation as soon as possible, Thomas seemed satisfied with my response, but there was clearly an awkward atmosphere lingering in the department at that moment. It was clear from his actions and words since he took office up until today that he was naturally a tough person to deal with. I hadn't expected him to make snide remarks in front of the employees. I went home and vented to Ashley about what had happened today. I was really surprised. I had thought for sure that at least my wedding would be properly celebrated, but I guess I was foolish to even hope a little.
Thomas is 30, right? I bet he's just feeling the pressure because everyone around you is getting married. Don't worry so much. Everything will be fine on the day.
Ashley offered me some encouraging words. At that time, Ashley hadn't yet realized the true horror of what Thomas was capable of. Spending time with Ashley was very comforting. Even though the issue with Thomas lingered in the back of my mind, my spirits were completely lifted. However, even on the day of the wedding, Thomas' attitude was the same as always. I regretted inviting him, realizing it was a mistake. Suddenly, overcome with frustration, I couldn't stop shaking. Without noticing anything was amiss with me, Thomas loudly proclaimed for the whole venue to hear.
Oh, someone with your lack of education is doomed to be a low-level employee forever. Your salary won't increase, and your wife will surely struggle. I don't mean to be rude, but you should start looking for part-time work now.
Thomas was in his own world, completely oblivious to the shocked expressions of the colleagues around him. Everyone must have been thinking, "Thomas, you've done." However, Thomas, perhaps feeling exhilarated from speaking his mind, tried to leave with a brighter smile than usual. I had never seen anything so ridiculous in my life. Thomas's cheerfulness was just a manifestation of his shallowness. I felt pity for Thomas. Then, someone called out to stop Thomas. It was Ashley, who would become my wife. She had heard stories about Thomas, but seemed not to have expected this much. Ashley was angry.
To think you're a supervisor, I truly feel sorry for your employees.
Thomas, surprised, turned around and asked,
"What do you mean?"
Thomas turned back to Ashley. Despite her usually calm nature, Ashley could be quite formidable when angry. I prepared myself for what was to come.
Why can't you celebrate your employees' happiness? How can you possibly foster growth in your team with that attitude? You've been smiling this whole time, but what are those smiles really about? Your smiles lack sincerity. If you think attending a wedding is meaningless, you shouldn't have come at all. It would have been more respectable and genuine.
When Ashley unleashed what she had been holding inside, Thomas's expression changed.
I get this uncomfortable feeling when I see others happy.
He retorted loudly, just as our managers and directors seemed to enter his field of view. The executives are taken aback by Thomas' distraught appearance. Thomas was probably panicked by their reaction. He turned his back on us again and left the venue. He seems to have been quite disturbed. He left clutching a beer bottle, his smile as refreshingly misplaced as ever, but ultimately ridiculous. The next day, when I arrived at work as usual, the normally quiet HR department was unusually abuzz. After a wedding, it would have been normal to exchange greetings and share thoughts on the event. But everyone seemed tense and whispered among themselves. "What's going on?" I asked by way of greeting, and one of the employees whispered back,
"We can't find the manager. It seems he's been called to the president's office."
I see."
Do you know something?"
I reacted impulsively, though none of the employees were aware of the situation. Pretending to make copies, I made my way to the president's office. As expected, I could hear several voices from inside as I approached. When I lightly knocked on the door, the secretary peeked out.
"You've come at just the right time. Please, come in."
Inside, I found Thomas, our company's president, a client's chairman, and my beloved wife, Ashley, all sitting at the table with solemn expressions. "Thank you for attending our wedding yesterday."
It was a wonderful wedding. Ashley looked truly happy.
Yes, indeed.
Ignoring Thomas, the chairman, Ashley and I engaged in conversation. Then, the president looked at me, and he apologized to me in front of Thomas.
"I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the wedding yesterday. I had a business trip planned 6 months ago. I really wanted to celebrate your new beginning."
"No, your thoughts alone are enough." I glanced at Thomas briefly. Thomas was usually confident manager, but he was clearly at a loss for words, his eyes darting around. Seeing Thomas so out of his element, I couldn't help but say, "Thank you for taking the time to come yesterday despite being so busy. I understand it's a busy time for the company, and I apologize for any inconvenience to the HR department. I'm willing to do whatever is needed, so please feel free to direct me.
No, about yesterday,
Despite being in front of the president, he couldn't manage to respond properly. His mind must have been in turmoil. Then, the client's chairman started to get to the point.
Right. We have an important matter to discuss. You're Thomas, aren't you? I saw you at Ashley's wedding yesterday, even if just for a moment. Thank you for coming despite it being a weekend.
Yes. As John's manager, I wanted to celebrate my employee's new beginning, so I attended.
Thomas tried to act as if the harsh words he had said to me during the wedding didn't happen, especially in front of the executives. Suddenly regaining his cheerful demeanor, pretending to be the ideal boss, he must have thought he could deceive everyone. But it was a futile effort.
I was truly shocked. I'm over 80 years old now. My wife passed away from illness a few years ago. I don't know when my time will come. So, being able to see my granddaughter Ashley's wedding with my own eyes made me incredibly happy. Moreover, her partner is John, who plays diligently in my amateur baseball team. When I was about to express my feelings to the two of you, you came over. I thought you were going to offer your congratulations, but what did you say?
Actually, the client's chairman calling Ashley his granddaughter was Paul Smith, who sponsors the amateur baseball team I belong to. Meaning, Ashley is the granddaughter of the client's chairman and the daughter of our company's president. To such a woman, Thomas had said disrespectful things, suggesting she had no eye for choosing a partner and should look for part-time work. When I got engaged to Ashley, considering the future, I had informed the employees of the HR department. However, that was just before Thomas took over as manager. I should have informed Thomas too, but his derogatory attitude towards me was so severe that I missed the chance to tell him about my engagement to Ashley. I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't mean to hide it. However, you seemed to dislike me so much that I never found the right moment to bring up personal matters, and before I knew it, the day had arrived. When I made an apologetic face, Ashley lightly restrained it.
Let's stop apologizing. It seems he's unaware of everything. It would be cruel to let him dig his own grave further. So it's better to clarify things now. If relationships sour, it affects the company too.
Your strength lies in your ability to look around and understand your surroundings. But perhaps because you see too much, you tend to overthink and worry about others too much. Given the situation, it's better to be direct and discuss your career plans moving forward.
Encouraged by Chairman Paul, I slowly stood in front of Thomas and clearly conveyed my future career plans as much as I knew. I met Ashley through my work in the HR department. I didn't know she was the president's daughter when I developed feelings for her. However, our relationship rapidly progressed through our connection in amateur baseball, and we started dating with marriage in mind. That was when I first became fully aware of Ashley's position. The client's company is globally recognized for its high-performance product development in office equipment. Though not very large, it operates as a family-owned business, and Ashley is the granddaughter of the company's founder, making her husband a potential successor. As for me, I had no ambition to climb the corporate ladder, but I understood that to be with Ashley, I needed to change. To repeat, I was a former high school baseball player, aspiring for baseball championships and professional leagues. However, an injury during practice ended my baseball dreams. and I lost my goal. In baseball, I was exposed to fierce competition, so I was completely burned out. So I took my own initiative to distance myself from the competition. The company that took me in allowed me to lead a peaceful life as an ordinary employee, but meeting Ashley made me realize I couldn't stay the same. I decided to prepare myself to grow as a future successor. I can say my experience and skills are sufficient yet. That's why I've been committed to learning the basics of HR work up to this day. I took on every task asked of me. The department head offered me a promotion to manager, but I planned to resign in a year, so I declined. And then you were brought in as the replacement.
Resigning, you say?
I'll be joining Paul's company. Initially, to learn the job, I'll start as a regular employee without any position. When our marriage was decided, I was offered the role of executive vice president to be involved in the management of the company. The chairman believed I could make a significant contribution based on my style of play in baseball. However, I felt that becoming an executive vice president without any track record would not sit well with the employees. Thinking this, I requested to start as a regular employee to learn the work first. That's the situation. Thomas had reached a point of no return. Despite being my wife, he had repeatedly made disrespectful comments to the daughter of one of our client's presidents. No one was there to offer a helping hand. At this moment, the president spoke to Thomas in a low voice.
Please go home for today. There are other concerning matters besides this incident. We will conduct a thorough internal investigation and inform you of your future with the company afterwards.
In fact, not just within the company, but extending to clients, there had been employees harassed for their educational background. Though the severity varied, the total number exceeded 50 people. The company was trying to broaden its business scope by valuing various abilities, not just educational background. Thus, alongside former high school athletes like me, there were super elites who had graduated from universities abroad. Thomas's actions were completely against the company's policy.
People who use sports equipment polish themselves in a dimension separate from academic background every day. The products we deal with belong to a world unrelated to educational attainment. We didn't hire you because of your academic background. You were hired because you diligently played soccer until high school, even though you were a substitute. If you had been a regular player, we probably wouldn't have hired you. I still remember how your eyes shone when you talked about soccer during the interview. Please, bring back the person you were back then.
It was later revealed that Thomas, like me, had also experienced failure in sports. He had practiced morning and evening, rain or shine, but never managed to secure a regular spot on the team. He tried hard to get into college in order to look back at the regular soccer team. However, he didn't get into his first choice college. While it was a prestigious college from my perspective, for Thomas, it was another experience of failure, just like soccer.
I'm sorry. I'll wash my face and start afresh.
2 weeks later, following the results of the internal investigation, Thomas was terminated from his position. A dismissal could have adversely affected his future job search, so, out of consideration, thanks to the president's kindness, he officially resigned for his own convenience. In the interim, I took over the manager's role until a successor was trained. When a junior showed promise, I transitioned to the client's company as a future successor. There had been no word from Thomas, and I was secretly worried about him. Years later, I heard a rumor about Thomas's whereabouts in the amateur baseball community. After wandering abroad for a while, Thomas returned home. Seemingly in better spirits, he began job hunting. He was hired as an administrative staff member for a local soccer team. His salary was less than half of what he made as an employee. Thomas also cleans toilets himself because there are few staff. He must have chosen to chase his dreams by letting go of his pride. By accepting his past as a bench warmer in soccer, he found value in nurturing young talent. Being on the bench allowed him to see a world others couldn't. I believed there was a place for Thomas, a job that was meant for him to do. I started working at a textile manufacturing plant right after graduating from high school. 17 years have passed, and I finally became the plant manager. That's when I was given an unbelievable order by the CEO. Wait a minute, are you saying I'm fired?
Well, yeah, that's right.
Even though the CEO was the happiest person when I took over as plant manager, despite no mishaps or accidents happening under my supervision as plant manager, being suddenly fired was beyond me. I couldn't fathom the reason. The CEO wouldn't give me any reason when I asked. Then, one day, I was suddenly called in by the CEO's secretary and was about to hear an unbelievable story. The reason I was fired from the company was hidden within was a story that was both sad and heartwarming.
You're fired, aren't you? Why is an outsider like you still here?
My name is Mike. After graduating from high school, I've been working at this textile manufacturer's plant for 17 years. Since last year, I've been honored with the position of plant manager. Since becoming plant manager, there have been no accidents at the plant, and everything has been going smoothly, in spite of such circumstances. Wait a minute, does this mean I'm being fired? I confronted the CEO with a loud voice.
Well, yes, that's the case. But don't worry, I've already arranged your next job. I really want you to do your best there.
The CEO told me this. I joined this company right after graduating from high school, moving away from my hometown. Of course, I didn't know anyone around, and I was full of anxiety, but the employees were very kind to me, and I was able to fit in quickly. The CEO who founded the company took care of me since I was a new employee because he said our backgrounds were similar. I worked desperately, putting my life into my job, wanting to live up to such expectations from the CEO. I thought we had a special bond, but maybe that was only my assumption. What did I do wrong? When I asked, the CEO shook his head.
I'm really sorry, but I'd prefer if you didn't ask for the reason. However, with your skills, I'm sure you'll manage just fine in your new job. The president there is a very nice person, and they should treat you quite well. Now, I have a meeting, so I'll have to leave.
With that, the CEO left the room. I wasn't convinced at all, but if it was an order from the CEO, I had no choice but to comply. No matter how much I argued, I had to follow. As I headed to the plant, I thought about what would come next. In the time leading up to my resignation, I was swamped with handing over my work and completing the resignation procedures. Since being told I was being let go by the CEO, I've racked my brain for a reason countless times, but couldn't come up with anything. I was troubled about moving to a new job with this unresolved feeling. Then, one evening, with just a week left until my resignation, I was getting ready to leave when I received a phone call. It was from the CEO's secretary, Emily.
Hello? Is this Mike? It's Emily. I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy, but there's something urgent I really need to tell you. It's a bit difficult to say this inside the office, so could you come to the coffee shop nearby?
Emily has been the CEO's secretary since I joined the company. She's a beautiful and capable woman. We usually don't interact much, but she's always been kind to me during company events and such. Wondering why I was being called out by Emily, the secretary, I headed to the coffee shop as instructed. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, I should be the one apologizing. I'm sorry for suddenly calling you out when you're busy. There's something I absolutely need to tell you.
Emily usually has a bright expression, but on this day, she looked inexplicably sad. What's going on?
It's about our CEO, Thomas, actually.
After saying that, Emily fell silent. There was silence for a moment, and at last Emily went on.
Mike, please stay calm as you hear this. This morning, Thomas passed away.
What? I dropped the glass I was holding to the floor.
The truth is, Thomas had been battling an illness for a long time. There were times when it seemed to get better, but last week his condition worsened.
No way, that can't be true.
Not many people know about Thomas passing yet. The company currently stands on Thomas's reputation, so we can't immediately go public with this information. Likely, our company will have to close down with the CEO's passing.
I was shocked and wondered why Emily chose this moment to tell me this fact. But why would you share such important news with me?
There was something Thomas had told me. If anything were to happen to him, he wanted me to tell you first. He thought of you like his own son.
Hearing this, I remembered the first time I met the CEO. I was an only child and lived with my father and mother. In high school, my father passed away due to an illness, and since my mother had always been frail, I couldn't let her work. So, I decided to find a job instead of going to college as planned. However, it was a bad time, and all the companies had already closed their general applications, making it hard to find a job. My homeroom teacher desperately reached out to several companies on my behalf. That's when the CEO, having learned about my family situation, decided to take me under his wing. And when I graduated from high school and got a job at this company, the CEO approached me.
You're Mike, right? I heard about your father's passing from HR. It must have been tough. I also lost my father around your age and had to work to support my family. Our circumstances were so similar. I couldn't help but be concerned about you. You are excellent in school and will greatly benefit our company. So, give it your all.
I was comforted by the CEO's warm words and threw myself into my work more than anyone else after joining. The CEO always watched over me kindly. David, who was the plant manager at the time, also took great care of me.
So, you're Mike. I've heard about you from Thomas, but I can't give you special treatment. So work hard and follow along. I'll train you to be competent.
David was a strict man, but I could feel his care in crucial moments. Whenever I struggled with my task, he would put his own work aside to teach me. I probably owe my appointment as plant manager to David. Emily, the secretary, helped me, an introverted and shy person, by introducing me to senior colleagues from other departments. Thanks to her, it became easier to coordinate with other departments, making my work more efficient. In this way, I was nurtured into a competent individual with the support of many staff members. I wouldn't have been elected the plant manager on my own. After my inauguration speech as plant manager, the CEO said to me,
Congratulations on becoming the plant manager. You were a new employee a decade ago, and now you're the plant manager. I don't have children, but I always wished for a capable son like you.
I still vividly remember the CEO speaking happily. As I reminisced about the CEO, Emily offered me a handkerchief.
Mike, don't cry.
Before I knew it, I was crying. I haven't been able to repay Thomas for everything yet. There was so much I wanted to say, but I couldn't utter anything more.
Let's express our feelings to him at the funeral the day after tomorrow.
And then, we left the coffee shop. On the day of the funeral, I was helping Emily at the reception when a noisy group approached. It was the vice president and his entourage of employees. Then, spotting me, the vice president said,
"Huh? Is that Mike over there? You've been fired, haven't you? What's an outsider doing here?"
He said this with a smirk on his face. At some point, the vice president and his clique of employees had become adversaries of the CEO, and rumors were circulating that the vice president might take over the company. The company was in trouble, and its reputation was suffering because of the vice president's aggressive sales tactics. As a result, the company had accumulated a significant amount of debt. Ignoring the vice president's words, I continued to help Emily, but then the vice president and his group started talking loudly.
The CEO was a terrible man, wasn't he? To pass away without saying anything, and to have been trying to ruin the company.
He glanced at my face as he said this.
In that respect, you're lucky. You got fired before the company went bankrupt. Though, unemployed suits you better than part-time worker.
I was holding back my frustration when the CEO's wife appeared, drawn by the commotion.
Enough, you all. Do you even understand who's to blame for my husband having to file for bankruptcy?
Emily, who was standing next to her, continued,
John, this is all your fault. Do you have any idea how much Thomas cleaned up after you all?
The vice president looked surprised and overwhelmed.
Have you forgotten about the suspension of business with that major menswear company? That was because of your forceful sales, which lost the company its credibility, right? The company has only been able to endure this long because of the CEO's support. Everyone knows you were trying to make the company your own.
Then, the vice president started speaking defiantly.
Wait a minute. I have no attachment to this company. If it's going to collapse, it should just collapse quickly. We'll take our severance pay and quit right away.
With that, the vice president and his group left. Indeed, as John said, I apologize for being here after quitting the company. I have no power to do anything.
What are you saying? You've done nothing wrong. You're Mike, right? When my husband was alive, he always talked about you. He even joked when he was drunk. Mike is like my son.
Once again, I thought of the CEO and couldn't help but cry, and so, the funeral was somehow conducted without incident. Months passed, and today was my first day at a company introduced to me by Thomas. After much deliberation, I decided to join this company. Upon arrival, I knocked on the door of the president's office to introduce myself. I am Mike, starting work here today. I came to introduce myself. The president slowly looked up, and to my surprise, someone I never expected was waiting there. What? Why are you here? It was Emily, the secretary.
Mike, I've been waiting for you.
Why is Emily here? I asked in a panic.
Let me introduce myself again. I am Emily, the president of this company.
She said with a smile.
There was a good reason for your resignation.
She began to explain. The CEO had quickly predicted that the textile industry was in danger due to the vice president's schemes and the recession. With his illness, he had decided to close the company. While working as a secretary, Emily had been attending business school, harboring the dream of starting her own business someday. The CEO supported her, and a few years ago, she was able to start her own company.
Thanks to Thomas, who introduced many clients to me, I was able to get this company off the ground quickly.
I was speechless at the sudden turn of events.
Thomas had a dream of passing his company on to you, Mike, but that became impossible. He was most concerned about you, which is why he introduced you to my company. I'm also happy to have you here.
Learning about this background, I felt the warmth of the CEO anew.
There's something I'd like you to do right away. I want you to be my right-hand man and support this company with me. Unfortunately, this is also Thomas' wish, so you can't refuse.
Emily said with a smile, but am I really up to the task?
That's perfectly fine. I've called in a great helper.
Then, there was a knock at the door, and entering was, "What? David, why are you here? You took early retirement, right?"
I'm getting on in years and didn't want to start over at a new company. But Thomas and Emily insisted, so I decided to work here reluctantly. Well, I'll be here to train you hard.
With David, who had trained me to be competent, I felt I could manage.
David, Mike here is a senior, having even been a manager.
Oh yeah, that's right. You became a manager after I retired. Then let's make a good company together, the three of us. That will be the best way to repay Thomas.
Understood. I look forward to working with you guys. Overwhelmed by emotion, I burst into tears.
Come on, don't cry. You're not a child. From now on, we'll work hard so we can shed tears of joy together.
Encouraged by Emily's words, I nodded vigorously. Working hard here will undoubtedly be my way of repaying Thomas. Surely, he's watching over us from heaven. We exchanged a firm handshake and began to open a new chapter together.
High school grad, get out of here already.
Today is the inauguration ceremony for the new company president, but when the department manager, Matt, spotted me, he came rushing over tensely. "Matt, was there any prior notice about high school grads being prohibited from attending today?" When I tried to argue, he just laughed disdainfully.
You think we're going to send out company-wide notices just for you? All right, just get out of here already.
I see. I left the hotel venue and entered a nearby cafe, waiting for the appropriate time. A few tens of minutes later, my smartphone rang. Thomas, hi.
It's not hi. Where are you right now?
I'm at a cafe near the venue. Matt ordered me to leave.
Geez. Anyway, just come back here right away.
I gulped down my coffee and headed back to the hotel venue once more. So, actually, my name is Alex. I'm 35 years old. I work as a regular employee at a major electrical manufacturer. One day, at the company where I work, it was decided that there would be a change of president. It's a common occurrence in large corporations for the founder, who is elderly, to resign, and for their son to succeed them. As Thomas, the new president, had already been a director and vice president within the company, and was well liked among the employees, the succession was relatively positively received by the staff. As a result, the inauguration ceremony for the new president became a grand event, with not only business partners and presidents of similar industries invited, but also all employees. Of course, as one of the employees, I headed to the hotel venue to attend the inauguration ceremony for the new president, but at the entrance, I bumped into Matt, the department manager from the same department. I had a bad feeling inside, and that feeling turned out to be spot on. As soon as Matt saw my face, he smirked condescendingly and said,
Alex, I can't believe you managed to come here looking so shabby. Talk about thick-skinned, huh? That's what we say about guys like you.
I've gotten used to being on the receiving end of such sarcasm and snide remarks. Matt often flaunts the fact that he attended a prestigious university and regularly looks down on those with less education, such as high school graduates. As a result, his treatment towards me as a high school graduate was terrible. Being accused or insulted by him was an everyday occurrence. Well, I'm sorry. Indeed, I don't own custom-tailored suits like Matt. I mostly have suits from the suit section of department stores, all bought at discounted prices. However, I regularly send them for dry cleaning and iron them to smooth out any wrinkles. Even though I made sure not to appear embarrassingly shabby to others. Even then, I don't think I look so shabby as to stand out among the other employees passing through the entrance. Well, I know that any counter-argument I make will be returned 100-fold, so it's best to just let it slide. I quickly apologized and tried to pass by him, but at that moment,
"Hey, where do you think you're going? There will be plenty of high-status individuals at the president's inauguration ceremony, you know. There's no way an uncultured, poor high school graduate like you should be allowed in. You're out of place here, so just leave already."
Saying so, Matt firmly waved his hand as if to drive away something dirty. It seemed like he was in a bad mood that day, as he was persistently bothering me more than I anticipated. Of course, it's a well-known fact that all employees have the right to attend the inauguration ceremony of the new president. Even if it's an order from my immediate superior, I can't just obediently comply with it. Prohibiting high school graduates from attending was not mentioned in the employee newsletter distributed beforehand. Upon hearing that, Matt smirked and said,
"Obviously. In a big corporation like ours, there's only one idiot high school graduate like you. Why would we bother making a special announcement just for you? Ignorant fools like you would only tarnish our company's reputation. So just leave already."
But I tried to continue my rebuttal, but he showed no signs of listening whatsoever.
"Hey, how desperate are you to attend? Are you just here for the dinner? This is why poor, regular employees like you are so unfortunate. There's no seat for you here, so go home now and eat some cheap and tasteless food."
It seemed like he really didn't want me to go inside under any circumstances. I asked for confirmation one last time. Am I correct in understanding that your statement "go home" is to be taken as a direct order?
Of course. Don't make me repeat myself. It's not a place for a high school grad like you.
Matt stated that firmly. As one of the employees, I was eager to attend the inauguration ceremony for the new president. However, I couldn't force my way through after being ordered by my immediate superior. "I understand. I will comply with the order." With those words, I turned back, and he watched me leave with a triumphant expression.
"You don't even have to bother coming to the company anymore. Useless people like you make no difference, whether you're here or not."
Listening carefully to those words, I left the hotel venue. Then I entered a nearby cafe and quickly grabbed a simple dinner. Feeling hungry as time passed, and to ensure I wouldn't miss any important communication, I decided to stay relatively close to the hotel. I ordered a hot coffee and spaghetti napolitan, then settled into my seat to take a breather. Matt was incredibly persistent and insulting today. Perhaps he was feeling uplifted due to the inauguration ceremony of the well-respected new president. I'm used to being ridiculed for being a high school graduate, but just because my educational background is low, I highly doubt I've ever caused any trouble at work. Despite the frustration, I've been putting in years of effort to prove myself through my achievements. However, I've been realizing that overturning Matt's mindset is much more difficult than I initially thought. Since I was 5 years old, I've been living alone with my mother. After my biological father disappeared, she raised me single-handedly ever since. My mother, who became pregnant with me at the age of 20, got married without any work experience. So, even though she had to raise me alone, it wasn't easy for her to find a well-paying full-time job. While juggling part-time jobs, she saved money to ensure I could pursue my education as much as possible. However, when I was 17 years old, the strain took its toll on her health, and she became unable to work. I understood from a young age that we didn't have the money for me to attend a university, so while others around me were becoming university students as though it's a given, I had to accept that I would have to work as a high school graduate. My mother apologized to me many times, but I never considered myself unfortunate. I had seen firsthand all the efforts she had made for me until then. Now it's my turn. I want to be able to support my mom. That's what I've been thinking. After graduating from high school, I started working part-time at a nearby convenience store. As I wasn't particularly intelligent, I knew that even if I looked for work with just a high school diploma, I wouldn't find any decent job opportunities. I worked multiple part-time jobs just like my mother did before, sacrificing leisure time to work tirelessly every day. The only respite I found was occasionally learning boxing at the gym owned by the owner of one of my part-time jobs. It was because the owner said that my physique was suitable and expressed a desire to teach me. I didn't excel particularly, but it was the first time I had been deeply involved in a sport since my time in the high school club, before my mother fell ill. The sense of satisfaction from feeling stronger with every effort was enjoyable, making it my only source of pleasure. But by the time I turned 19, I couldn't afford to say such things anymore. My mother's illness worsened, and she was forced to be hospitalized. I had been diligently saving the money I earned from working, but it was simply not enough. Considering the possibility of a long hospital stay in the future, I realized that I needed even more money. After that, I took on even more work and quit boxing. I worked outside every day except for sleep and meal times, but it still wasn't nearly enough. Out of desperation, I eventually found myself turning to gambling. At the age of 20, I started spending my free time at the horse racing track. There were times when I won and times when I lost, but overall, I was winning more often. Gradually, the idea of working seriously started to seem foolish to me. Should I just quit all my jobs and devote myself entirely to horse racing? One day, as I began to entertain such unstable thoughts, I went to the racetrack as usual. Having conducted thorough analysis with my own methods, I bought my bets with confidence and took my seat. As the race began, it unfolded just as I had anticipated, and there was no suspenseful moment that made my palms sweat. Amidst the crowd shouting loudly with excitement, I found myself strangely calm. Despite being in dire financial straits, I should have been more anxious. Perhaps I had a strange confidence that said, "I can do this." Then suddenly, the person sitting next to me caught my attention. While most of the spectators stood up, shouted, and cheered, only the person next to me and I remained seated, hardly moving at all. That's why, for some reason, I couldn't help but be intrigued by that person. Glancing briefly at him, I saw a man in his late 20s to early 30s, wearing an expensive-looking suit and his hair neatly styled. To be honest, he seemed completely out of place in the surroundings. He didn't seem like he was in dire need of money, so I couldn't help but wonder why he was there in the first place. Was he simply enjoying horse racing as a hobby, regardless of the prize money? Or perhaps he was amused by us, looking down on us as we tried to make money through gambling. His true intentions were completely inscrutable, even as I observed him. Then our eyes met. Whoa, no, I must have stared too much. Feeling awkward, I quickly averted my gaze. However, the man smiled warmly and started a conversation.
Hello. It's my first time here, and I'm not quite sure what to expect. Did I seem out of place?
Despite appearing older and seemingly more well-off than me, I was surprised by how humble the man seemed. And before I knew it, I found myself opening up to the older man I had just met, which surprised me even more. Then we hit it off and talked until we ran out of betting tickets. The conversation mainly revolved around horse racing, my unique analysis methods, and my feelings about horse racing, all seemingly trivial matters. However, since they were topics I couldn't discuss with people in my personal life, such as my mother or friends, I felt a great sense of relief. Being aware that we would never meet again allowed me to speak candidly and freely. I thought that would be the end of it, but several hours after parting ways at the racetrack, I unexpectedly encountered the man again in a surprising manner. The hometown where I've lived isn't exactly known for its safety. It's the kind of rural town where you might expect to see characters straight out of retro TV shows, rough-looking youngsters who wouldn't seem out of place in a gang. I have always had a good physique and a somewhat intimidating appearance since birth, so I have never been a victim of such incidents myself. But as I was leaving the racetrack and heading to the nearest station, I spotted a salaryman being mugged. Honestly, while I'd rather not get involved in any trouble, seeing such a clear incident unfold in front of me makes it impossible for me to just ignore it. "What are you doing? I'll call the police." In response to my voice, the attention of the thugs naturally turned towards me.
"You got a problem, punk. Beat it."
Dodging the thug's punch, I swiftly countered with a punch aimed at a vulnerable spot, knocking him out cold in no time. Even though it had been years since I quit boxing, taking down a few thugs was like a walk in the park for me, thanks to my experience in the ring.
I'm saved. Thank you very much.
I realized that the person who said that to me was the man I had talked to at the racecourse earlier, and I was truly surprised. Of course, the person seemed quite surprised as well. He seemed extremely grateful to me and invited me for a drink as a token of appreciation. We entered a nearby bar, and when he gave me his business card, I recognized him as a director of a major corporation that even I was familiar with. Although our conversation flowed smoothly and I felt a sense of camaraderie developing, I couldn't shake the feeling that our worlds were fundamentally different. However, the time spent with that person, who was so approachable and made no distinction in class or age, was incredibly enjoyable and didn't make me feel the difference in our backgrounds or ages at all. Before I knew it, we had become drinking buddies, and since then, we have occasionally kept in touch and shared drinks together. Balancing multiple part-time jobs gradually wore me down, and I was plagued by a slight anxiety about whether it was okay to entrust my life to horse racing. During this time, my personal life was falling apart, but whenever I was with him, I could forget about the hardships. On one particular day, something happened. As usual, while drinking, we were engaged in casual conversation when he brought up something unbelievable.
Would you consider joining our company?
I couldn't believe my ears. I was momentarily taken aback by the literal meaning of those words, but as someone from the bottom rung of society, I couldn't fathom being invited to such a prestigious company, no matter how close we were. I thought it might have been a prank due to the drinking session, or perhaps I misheard. However, it seemed that neither of those was the case, and he genuinely seemed to be serious about inviting me to the company. No, wait a moment. As I mentioned before, I only have a high school diploma and no experience as a full-time employee. I appreciate your sympathy and understanding of my financial struggles, but I don't think I can be of any help. I declined, saying so.
I do value you as a drinking buddy, that's for sure. But I don't think it's wise to mix business with our friendship.
However, he made it clear. After that, he talked to me about the business acumen he found in our conversations. As a high school graduate, I couldn't possibly have any knowledge of business. No matter how much I trust my drinking buddy, I couldn't accept it at all. That's what I thought. However, that person said the following.
When we first met, I was at the racetrack out of curiosity, but I was feeling quite overwhelmed by the difficulty of achieving results in that environment. And then you said this to me.
You want a tip? For me, I guess it's about not trying too hard to make money. When you buy while thinking about making a profit, impure farts interfere and you can't make proper predictions. So, I believe in doing it calmly. Even if the immediate returns are small, it's more beneficial in the long run.
I had studied business management extensively, but at that moment, I realized that I hadn't figured out how to reconcile with my own heart.
Honestly, I had forgotten that I even said such a thing. Moreover, being expected to have business acumen based on just that one chance event felt like pressure to me.
Management isn't just about knowledge, it's about instinct. And you undoubtedly have that. Of course, it's okay to say what you can't do, and I'm not asking you to dive into management right away. For now, I'd like you to gain experience in sales, and then see how you feel about our work. And if you come to feel that you want to stay with us and contribute more, eventually I hope you'll consider joining our management team and helping us out.
He said that. In all honesty, this conversation made me very happy and grateful. I still needed a lot of money to cover my mother's hospital bills. But honestly, I was reaching my limits with the exhaustion of working nonstop every day. But I couldn't afford not to earn. I wonder if I could hit the jackpot in horse racing. I couldn't help but feel incredibly anxious about how I was going to live on while entertaining such a dream-like idea. So, regardless of how it came about, the opportunity to become a full-time employee at a major corporation felt like a dream come true. However, being a high school graduate remained the biggest source of anxiety for me. However, that person sensed my anxiety and said to me,
"That diploma stuff is garbage. I only graduated from a technical high school myself."
So I made up my mind. And once I made that decision, I've been striving for 12 years to live up to those expectations. This marked the beginning of my encounter with President Thomas. As I finished eating my spaghetti and took a sip of coffee, my phone rang. "Hi, Thomas." As soon as I called, he answered with a flustered tone.
"It's not hi. Where are you right now?"
Thomas and I are still drinking buddies even after joining the company. Since he got married 10 years ago, we've been getting along well as families. So, I think I have a pretty good understanding of the atmosphere in his personal life, but I've never seen him so flustered before. I'm at a cafe near the hotel. As I emailed earlier, I was ordered by manager Matt to leave because there's no seat for a high school graduate, so I left. Upon hearing my words, Thomas sighed in a somewhat relieved manner.
"It's refreshing in a way. Or rather, what can I say? It's good to be obedient to your immediate superior, but from today onwards, things are going to be different, right? You could have said something like, I'm a director now, so I can follow your orders, couldn't you?
Certainly. It's as he said. As promised when I joined the company, I've become a director at the same time Thomas takes on the role of becoming the president. Matt, who has been making sarcastic remarks to me all this time, will now become my subordinate. But just because the position changes doesn't mean I will change myself, so I couldn't muster the courage to be overly assertive. Despite saying that, I couldn't deny feeling a bit eager to surprise and humble Matt while waiting at a nearby cafe in anticipation of Thomas' call.
Today is also your inauguration speech as a director and the vice president. After you finish your coffee, come back immediately.
Thomas instructed me, prompting me to return to the hotel right after finishing my coffee. The expression on Matt's face when I was introduced as the new director was almost comical, even from a distance. Nobody in the company knew about the relationship between Thomas and me, so the venue was filled with shock when I was introduced. However, Matt's reaction stood out among them all. Although he didn't know, he seemed to regret his recent verbal attacks on me, looking pale and shaken. I wasn't planning any power play or revenge, but I hoped this incident would make him reflect on his actions. While it's undeniable that I, as a high school graduate, was the one who suffered the most humiliation, it was clear that other employees, including those with lower educational backgrounds than Matt, were also experiencing discomfort. As the vice president and director, I want to contribute not only in terms of business acumen, as expected by Thomas, but also in creating an environment where all employees can work comfortably regardless of their educational background. I believe that, precisely because I'm a high school graduate, there are things I can uniquely bring to the table. Afterward, Matt, the department head, was found guilty of obstructing my inauguration ceremony with selfish lies and was accused of harassment by several employees. As for me, I didn't involve myself personally and only testified about what I had experienced. I chose not to participate in a meeting to decide on his punishment. As a result, he was transferred to a regional factory and demoted to a security guard position, which were quite severe penalties. Despite his high capabilities, I hope this serves as a lesson for him to realize the importance of how one approaches their work, rather than being judged solely based on education and background. As for me, I'm still a rookie as a director. I'm learning the ropes from my predecessor, Thomas, and gradually expanding my capabilities. Whether I'm a director or a vice president, my education level as a high school graduate remains the same. However, there's no longer anyone who belittles me for it. I believe it's because people are now more interested in how I approach my work rather than my education level. So, I'm determined to continue giving my best without feeling ashamed of my education level, and do everything I can with my current abilities. What a nostalgic feeling. This day, after finishing our greetings to clients, Thomas and I were driving in the car. As we passed by a familiar horse racing track, we decided to make a nostalgic visit.
I never imagined back when we first met here that we'd end up working together like this.
His words resonated deeply with me. You're right. Back then, he mentioned that I had business acumen, but what I'm truly grateful for is how he picked me up when I was at my lowest. I can't thank him enough. Thanks to him, my mother was able to undergo her hospitalization smoothly, and her major surgery was successful. Now, she's living healthily and happily. Even recently, when she heard that I was appointed as a director, she cried tears of joy. She understood well the efforts I had made. In the end, both of us lost that day. There was no problem in visiting the racetrack with nostalgic feelings, but knowing that he had encouraged me to bring my horse racing method to the company, I felt a desire to win since I had made the effort to come. I'm sorry, we lost. Upon my spontaneous apology, Thomas said,
I don't care about making profits. That's not what matters. I value nothing more than a commitment to facing things honestly and sincerely in front of us.
Whether it was because he sensed my feelings or not, Thomas continued to reassure me, promising to help me however he could. Now, I want to devote myself wholeheartedly to my work so that I can be of help to Thomas,